Most days, I didn't pay much attention to the little things lying around the house. A coffee mug left half full on the counter, a blanket draped over the couch, the faint scent of her perfume clinging to the air. They were just pieces of everyday life, background noise in a marriage that had settled into routine. But that morning, something felt off. The air in the house was still, like it was holding its breath, like it was waiting for me to notice what had been right in front of me the whole time. I had just stepped out of the shower, towel slung over my shoulder, when I spotted it sitting on the nightstand. Her phone. That never happened. In 10 years of marriage, Alyssa had never once left her phone behind. Not when she rushed out the door for work, not when she ran to the store, not even when we had fought, and she needed space. That phone had been glued to her hand like an extra limb. Yet there it was, silent, untouched. At first, I told myself it was nothing. Maybe she had been distracted, running late, forgot it in a hurry. I sat on the edge of the bed, rubbing my hair with the towel, waiting for the inevitable call from her office phone, asking me to bring it. But the longer I stared at that phone, the more something gnawed at me, something I couldn't name. I should have left it alone. I should have walked away, waited for her to come home, and grab it herself. But I didn't. I reached for it, my fingers brushing over the glass. And that was the second thing that felt wrong. No password. She had always kept a password on her phone. Not that I ever tried to snoop. I never had a reason to, but I knew it was there like a wall between her world and mine. Today, though, there was no wall. The screen was open, as if it was waiting for me. I hesitated, my thumb hovering over the screen. And then I swiped up. At first, it was nothing. The usual notifications, emails, missed calls. But then I saw it. A message thread at the top of her inbox. Luke, my brother. My stomach twisted, but I told myself not to overreact. It could be nothing. Maybe she had texted him about a birthday gift or some family thing. I tapped the thread, my pulse picking up speed. And then I saw the words that would change everything. Last night was incredible. I can still feel you. I blinked. Read it again. The air left my lungs in one sharp, painful exhale. There were more messages. So many more. My eyes skimmed over them, each one a knife carving into my ribs. Months. They had been sneaking around for months. Late-night meetups, secret hotel rooms, whispered inside jokes I didn't understand. And the worst part? She wasn't just cheating. She was happy about it. Excited. Giddy even. Like she had found something with him that I could never give her. My hands shook as I scrolled, my mind racing backward, trying to piece together all the things I should have noticed but never did. Her late nights, the sudden distance between us, the way Luke had stopped coming around as often, always making some excuse to avoid me. How had I been so blind? A new message popped up on the screen, pulling me back to the present. Luke, I cannot wait to see you again tonight. I clenched my jaw, so tight it hurt. My chest felt like it was caving in, like there wasn't enough air left in the room. Slowly, I set the phone down on the bed, my fingers curling into fists. I wasn't just angry. I was betrayed. And this wasn't the kind of betrayal you walk away from quietly. Downstairs, the front door creaked open. She was home. I heard the click of her heels on the hardwood, the casual rustle of her setting down her purse. Like this was just any other day. Like nothing had changed. But everything had changed. My breath was loud in my ears as I stood up, the phone still lying on the bed, dark now, but its messages burned into my mind. I took a step toward the bedroom door, my legs heavy, my hands shaking with something I wasn't ready to name yet. Hey, her voice floated up the stairs, light, casual. I think I left my phone. Have you seen it? I didn't answer. Another step. She was still talking, still oblivious. I was about to call you to check, but then I remembered I left it on the nightstand. Silly me. I reached the top of the stairs and looked down. There she was, slipping off her coat, tossing her keys into the dish by the door. A routine so familiar it made my stomach churn. Then she looked up and saw me. And she smiled. That same smile she had given me for 10 years. The one that used to mean everything. Now it felt like a weapon. I saw the moment she realized something was off. The way her eyes flicked to my face. The way her smile faltered ever so slightly. What's wrong? She asked, her voice soft, careful. I held up the phone. You forgot this. Her gaze flicked to the screen, then back to me. And for just a fraction of a second, so quick most people wouldn't catch it, I saw it. Fear. She inhaled sharply, steadying herself. Oh, thanks. I must have been in a rush this morning. She reached for the phone, but I pulled it back before her fingers could touch it. I read the messages, I said, my voice even. 3 simple words, but they landed like a blow. Her hand froze midair before slowly retreating to her side. I watched as her expression shifted. Shock, then calculation, like she was already working out what to say next. Messages? She repeated, her voice barely above a whisper. What messages? I let out a bitter laugh. It wasn't a real laugh. It was the kind of sound a man makes when the ground beneath him has crumbled, when everything he believed in has turned to dust. Do not do this, Alyssa, I said, my voice hard. I'm talking about the messages between you and Luke. She paled. I could practically hear the gears grinding in her head, scrambling for an escape. Denial. That was her first instinct. Luke. She shook her head quickly, stepping toward me. What are you talking about? He is your brother. I would never. Do not. I cut her off, my voice sharp. Do not stand there and lie to me. I saw everything. The messages. The late-night plans. The way you laughed with him, the way you used to laugh with me. Her lips parted, but no words came out. Her hands trembled at her sides, then reached for me, desperate for contact. I took a step back before she could touch me. Please, she whispered. It is not what you think. I scoffed, anger bubbling just under the surface. Then what is it, Alyssa? Explain it to me. Make it make sense. She looked down, biting her lip, her tell. The same thing she did when she was caught in a lie, but had not figured out how to spin it yet. It was a mistake, she finally admitted, her voice cracking. I did not mean for it to happen. It just... Do not. I interrupted, my voice rising. Do not tell me it just happened. People do not accidentally meet up in hotel rooms. She flinched like I had struck her. Good. I wanted it to hurt. I wanted her to feel even a fraction of what I was feeling. You do not understand, she whispered, tears welling in her eyes. I shook my head, laughing coldly. Oh, I understand perfectly. You chose him. No, she said quickly, her voice thick with desperation. I did not choose him. I chose you. I married you. I love you. Do not say that, I snapped, my voice finally cracking. Do not stand there and tell me you love me while you sneak around with him. Her knees buckled, and she collapsed onto the bottom step of the staircase, burying her face in her hands. Her shoulders shook as sobs racked through her, but I just stood there, watching. I should have felt something, pity, grief, regret. But all I felt was anger. Deep, raw, consuming anger. It filled every inch of me, squeezing my lungs, making it impossible to breathe. I turned away, heading back upstairs. I could not look at her anymore. Not like this. The phone was still in my hand, heavy with the weight of truth I never asked for. I tossed it onto the bed and ran my fingers through my hair, trying to steady the storm raging inside me. Downstairs, her sobs softened but never stopped. She was not done talking. She was going to come up with another excuse, another justification, and I was already bracing for it, because I knew Alyssa, and she wasn't done lying yet. I paced the bedroom, my feet tracing the same path over and over like I could outwalk the mess she had made. My mind replayed every conversation we had ever had, searching for the signs I had missed. And now that I was looking, I could see them everywhere. The nights she stayed out later than usual. The way she had become distant, cold even. How Luke had been avoiding me, making up flimsy excuses about work and being too busy to come around. I should have known. I should have known. I sat on the edge of the bed, elbows resting on my knees, staring at the phone like it was a loaded gun. I read through the messages again. Alyssa and Luke, my wife and my brother. They had laughed together, confided in each other. She had given pieces of herself to him, pieces that were supposed to belong to me. The worst part? I blamed myself. Had I worked too much? Had I ignored her? Had I been so focused on providing that I had not noticed my own marriage falling apart? I remember the nights I came home late, exhausted, expecting her to understand. I thought we were building a life together, that we were on the same page. But maybe she had been waiting for someone else all along. I squeezed my eyes shut, trying to block out the thoughts. But they came anyway, relentless and cruel. Was it something I said? Or something I did not say? How did it come to this? A creak in the hallway made me lift my head. Alyssa was coming up the stairs. I could hear the hesitation in her footsteps. She paused just outside the door before slowly pushing it open. She stepped inside, arms wrapped around herself like she was trying to hold herself together. For a moment, just one stupid moment, she looked like the woman I had promised to protect. And I hated that some part of me still wanted to protect her. "Can we talk?" she asked softly, her voice raw. I did not answer right away. I wanted to scream, to demand answers, but instead, I just stared at the floor. "Talk then." She sat in the chair by the window, rubbing at her face like she could erase what she had done. "I know you hate me right now," she whispered. "You're right about that," I said flatly. "But you're not here to tell me you are sorry. You are here to tell me why this was not your fault." She winced, but did not argue. "I just need you to understand," she said. "It did not start because I wanted to hurt you." I scoffed. "Oh, so what? You accidentally fell into bed with my brother. You accidentally snuck around behind my back." She looked down. "It was Luke." My body stiffened. "What do you mean it was Luke?" She swallowed, not meeting my gaze. "He came to me first. He was the one who started it. I did not know how to stop it." I laughed. A cruel, hollow sound. "So now you are the victim? You want me to believe my brother forced you into this?" Her head snapped up, and for the first time, I saw something other than guilt in her expression. "You do not know what it is like," she said, her voice trembling. "You do not know how lonely I have been. How many nights I sat alone, wondering if you would even notice if I was gone." The words hit me harder than the betrayal itself, because deep down, I knew what she meant, and that scared me more than anything. Her words were a slap I never saw coming. I took a step back, needing space, needing air that did not smell like her perfume, like the life I thought I knew. "So this is my fault," I said, my voice cold and steady. "You are blaming me." "No," Alyssa said quickly, shaking her head. "I'm not blaming you. I'm trying to explain." "Explain what?" "That you had a choice, and you chose him." Tears spilled down her cheeks, but I felt nothing. No sympathy, no warmth. Just the icy grip of betrayal curling around my ribs, making it hard to breathe. "It wasn't that simple," she whispered. I let out a bitter laugh. "Then make it simple. Tell me why you kept going back to him. Tell me why it was my brother you turned to instead of me." She hesitated, her lips trembling. For a moment, I thought she would stay silent, but then she spoke. "Because he listened," she said softly, like she was confessing something sacred. "He made me feel like I wasn't invisible." Invisible? The word sank into my chest like a weight. Had she really felt that way? Like she was fading into the background while I worked late, missed dinners, stayed buried in my job? Had she been waiting for me to see her, only to find that he was already watching? For one stupid second, I wanted to tell her she was wrong, that I had always seen her. But the truth was suffocating. Maybe she had felt invisible. Maybe I let that happen. But that did not excuse what she did. I turned to face her, my hands clenched at my sides. "So what now?" I asked, my voice sharp. "You want me to just forgive you? Pretend like my own brother didn't sleep with my wife?" She stood up, her legs unsteady like she was struggling to hold herself together. "I'm not asking for forgiveness," she whispered. "I'm asking you to hear me out before you decide how this ends." I stared at her, this woman I thought I knew, and it hit me like a punch to the gut. This was not just about betrayal. It was about all the cracks in our foundation, the ones I ignored until they split wide open. But knowing that did not change what I had read on that phone. It did not erase his name on her screen. It did not erase their messages. It did not change the fact that Luke, the same brother who had spent years resenting me, had finally found a way to take what was mine. I turned and left the room without another word. The air in the house felt suffocating, pressing in from all sides. I found myself in the kitchen without realizing how I had gotten there. My hands gripped the edge of the counter, my knuckles turning white. I stared at the sink, watching water drip from the faucet, slow and steady. Each drop felt like a moment in my life slipping through my fingers. Moments I thought were solid, real. But now I did not know what was real anymore. I reached for a beer, twisting the cap off and taking a long, bitter sip. The taste grounded me, even as my mind refused to stay still. "Luke," The anger came back full force, hitting me like a freight train. He had always been jealous of me. Ever since we were kids, he had lived in my shadow, always second best, always trying to prove something. I should have seen this coming. How many family gatherings had I sat through, laughing with him, while he was sneaking around with my wife? How many times had they exchanged glances across the room, thinking I was too blind to notice? The rage burned hotter. I wanted to break something, smash my fist through the drywall, hear something shatter the way my life just had. But the anger was not just for them. It was for me, too, for being stupid, for trusting them. The sound of her footsteps coming down the stairs made my grip tighten around the bottle. I did not want to see her. I did not want to hear her voice. But she came into the kitchen anyway, her eyes swollen and red. "Why are you down here?" she asked quietly, like she was afraid to set me off. I took another sip of my beer, letting the silence hang between us like a noose. Then, without looking at her, I said, "Did you ever think about what this would do to me? Or was that part of the thrill?" She flinched, her arms wrapping around herself like she was trying to keep from falling apart. "It wasn't like that," she whispered. "I never wanted to hurt you. But you did," I shot back. "And do not try to tell me you did not enjoy it." "I didn't," she cried, her voice breaking. "It was a mistake, a terrible mistake. I let things get out of control and I—" Crack. The sound of the bottle hitting the counter echoed through the kitchen as I slammed it down. "Stop," I growled. "I'm tired of hearing how sorry you are. Sorry does not fix this." She wiped at her eyes, her breathing uneven. "I do not know how to fix it. I do not know what you want me to say." I let out a bitter laugh. "You still do not get it, do you? There is nothing you can say. You cannot undo this." Silence. She was crying again, but I did not care. The anger was too much. It had taken over, drowning out anything else I might have felt. Then a thought hit me. Luke, he was the root of this. He had been waiting for his chance, and he took it. Maybe Alyssa had been weak, but he had known exactly what he was doing. He had waited for his moment, used her loneliness against her, and he did it knowing it would destroy me. I couldn't let him get away with it. I turned to face her, my voice colder than it had ever been. "Did you tell him I found out?" Her brows furrowed. "No." "Good," I said. "Do not." She hesitated. "What are you going to do?" I did not answer right away, because, truth be told, I did not know yet. But I knew one thing. This was not over. Not by a long shot. And Luke was about to find that out the hard way. "I'm going to make sure you regret ever touching her," I said, my voice low and unwavering. His smirk faded, replaced by something else, wariness. He straightened, squaring his shoulders, but I saw the hesitation in his eyes. "Man, listen," Luke started, raising his hands like that would somehow diffuse this. "It is not what you think." I did not let him finish. My fist connected with his jaw, the impact rattling my bones. He staggered back, hitting the wall behind him, his hand flying to his face. The shock in his eyes was almost satisfying, but not enough. "Not yet." "What the hell?" he shouted, spitting blood onto the floor. "You know exactly why I am here," I growled, stepping inside and slamming the door behind me. "Do not even try to lie." He wiped his mouth, still looking dazed. "Are you out of your damn mind?" "Maybe I am," I said, voice sharp as a knife. "You have been sleeping with my wife." "My wife, Luke. How long did you think you could get away with it?" He paled. The color drained from his face so fast, it almost made me laugh. But then, just like that, he recovered. The shock faded, and in its place I saw it, that smirk. That cocky, smug look that made my blood boil hotter than ever. "So," he said, shaking his head, "you finally figured it out. Took you long enough." I wanted to hit him again. Harder this time. "You have been jealous of me your whole damn life." I spat, stepping closer. Always waiting for me to screw up. Always trying to take what is mine. But this is a new low, even for you. He shrugged, still acting like this was nothing. Like it was a game. Maybe if you weren't so busy playing the perfect husband, she wouldn't have come to me. I saw red. I grabbed him by the collar and slammed him against the wall, so hard a picture frame crashed to the floor. "You think this is funny?" I snarled. "You think you can just take what is mine and get away with it?" He let out a bitter laugh, his breath warm against my face. "She wasn't yours anymore, man. You lost her a long time ago. I just picked up the pieces." His words hit harder than his jaw had. I tightened my grip, knuckles brushing against his collarbone. You ruined everything, I said, my voice shaking with rage. You destroyed my marriage. My family. His lips curled into a smirk, and I could tell he thought he had one. Maybe your marriage wasn't as solid as you thought, he said. That was it. I shoved him again, and this time he stumbled, knocking over a lamp that crashed to the floor. He scrambled to his feet, breathing hard. Go ahead, he taunted, holding his hands up. Hit me again if it makes you feel better. But it won't change the fact that she came to me willingly. I clenched my fist so tight my nails dug into my palms. Willingly. She had chosen him. I had spent years believing she was my partner, my person, the one I could trust. I had given her my name, my home, my love, and she gave herself to him. The weight of it pressed down on my chest, crushing me from the inside out. Luke tilted his head, eyes gleaming with something twisted, like he was enjoying this. What is worse, he asked, that she cheated or that she liked it? My vision blurred. My body moved before I could think. Crack. My fist met his ribs, knocking the breath out of him. He stumbled back, gasping, but I grabbed him again, throwing him against the table. A chair toppled over, with scraping against the floor, and for the first time, I saw real fear in his eyes. You think this is a joke? I shouted, standing over him. You think this is some game? He coughed, holding his side, but still had the audacity to chuckle. You were so predictable, he wheezed. Always so damn emotional. I wanted to break him. I took a step forward, fists shaking, but something stopped me. The sound of sirens. My blood ran cold. Luke must have seen the shift in my face because he let out another breathless laugh. What? Thought I would not be ready for this. I turned toward the window and saw the flashing lights pulling up outside. Someone had called the cops. Luke smiled. You always let your anger get the best of you, he said. And now? You just proved her right. The rage drained out of me, replaced by something darker, realization. This had been his plan. He wanted me to come here. He wanted me to lose control. And now, if I was not careful, I was about to lose a hell of a lot more. I had two choices, fight or walk away. My heart pounded. The officers were getting out of their car now, moving toward the door. I could see the headlines already. Husband attacks brother over cheating scandal. The humiliation, the fallout. My parents, my friends, the entire town, everyone would know. Luke leaned against the table, still grinning. Better make a decision, brother. I let out a slow breath, the weight of it burning in my chest. Then I stepped back. I turned toward the door just as the first knock came. Sir, open up. This is the police. Luke watched me, waiting, hoping I would be dumb enough to give them a reason to arrest me. I clenched my jaw, swallowed down every ounce of rage threatening to boil over, and forced myself to breathe. Then, without another word, I walked past him, opened the door, and faced the officers. Because this was not how it ended. No, this was just the beginning. I stood there, breathing hard, my mind struggling to keep up with what she had just said. I had come home ready for a fight, ready to hear more excuses, more lies. But this was something else. I had spent the last few hours believing that she was the one who had ruined everything. That Sarah had made a choice, knowing exactly what she was doing. And now she was sitting here, telling me that Eric had forced her hand, that he had blackmailed her into keeping it going. I did not know whether I wanted to scream or laugh. Because if this was true, then my brother had not just betrayed me. He had trapped her too. I stepped back, running a hand through my hair, my fingers shaking as they brushed against my scalp. Why the hell didn't you tell me? She let out a shaky breath, gripping the blanket draped over her lap like it was the only thing keeping her grounded. Because I was scared. Scared of what? I snapped. That I'd be mad? That I'd leave? That I'd kill him? Her head shot up, her eyes filled with a new kind of fear. I didn't want you to get hurt. I let out a bitter laugh, shaking my head. Too late for that, Sarah. I'm already hurt. She wiped at her face, her shoulders trembling. I wanted to stop. I swear I did. But every time I tried, he would remind me that he could ruin me. That he could make sure you'd never look at me the same way again. My jaw clenched so tight it ached. I thought about every time Eric had shown up at family events, every time he had sat across from me at the dinner table, cracking jokes like nothing was wrong. How long had he been holding this over her head? How long had he been playing us both? I turned away, my hands gripping the back of the chair across from her. And you just let him? She flinched, but did not argue. I didn't see a way out. There is always a way out, I said, my voice colder than before. You could have told me. She let out a breath that sounded more like a sob. I didn't know if you'd believe me. I spun around, anger flashing through me. Are you kidding me? You're my wife, Sarah. I've loved you for a decade. And you thought I'd take his side? Tears streamed down her face. I didn't think you'd take his side. I thought you'd hate me anyway. I clenched my fists, my body trembling with the weight of it all. Had I been that blind? Had I really been so distant that she thought she had no one to turn to? For a moment, the room fell silent except for her quiet sobs. And then, like a switch flipping in my brain, my anger shifted. This was not just about an affair anymore. This was not just about betrayal. This was about Eric. He had not just stabbed me in the back. He had sunk his claws into Sarah, manipulated her, controlled her, made sure she felt trapped. That son of a bitch had played both of us. And I was done letting him win. I took a slow breath, forcing myself to stay calm. Did he ever hurt you? Her eyes widened. What? Physically, I clarified. Did he ever lay a hand on you? She shook her head quickly. No, he never. He never hurt me like that. But he knew exactly what to say to keep me scared. I nodded slowly, absorbing everything. I needed time to think, time to figure out what the hell I was supposed to do next. But one thing was clear. I wasn't going to let Eric get away with this. I took a step toward the door. Where are you going? She asked, her voice filled with panic. To think, I said, and to figure out what the hell I'm going to do about my brother. She stood up quickly, reaching for me, but stopping herself before she touched me. Please, she whispered, just don't do something you'll regret. I looked at her for a long moment, the woman I had loved, the woman who had betrayed me, the woman who had been used by someone I thought I could trust. Regret, I said, shaking my head. That's the thing, Sarah. I already regret a lot of things. But stopping him? That won't be one of them. And with that, I walked out the door. Because this wasn't over. Not even close. I sat there in the dark, the silence pressing in on me. I should have felt some kind of relief, like I had all the pieces now, like the puzzle was finally complete. But instead, I felt nothing. Just a hollow space in my chest where everything I thought I knew had been ripped out and replaced with doubt. Sarah and Eric had both told me their versions of the truth. And now I was left in the middle, trying to make sense of two stories that didn't quite fit together. Either she was lying, trying to twist things to save herself, or he was lying, trying to make her look worse than she already did. And the worst part? I would never really know. The door creaked open, and Sarah stepped inside, moving cautiously, like she was afraid I might explode at any second. I didn't look at her. I just kept staring at the wall, my jaw tight. I know you do not believe me, she said softly, her voice raw from crying. But I swear to you, I wanted to end it. I tried. I was afraid. I let out a slow breath. Afraid of what? That he would ruin me, she whispered. That he would ruin us. I turned my head slightly, finally looking at her. Her face was pale, eyes swollen, hands shaking at her sides. She looked wrecked, destroyed, but so was I. You already ruined us, I said, my voice flat. Whatever we were, whatever we had, it is gone, Sarah. She flinched, like my words physically hurt her. I know, she choked out. I know I can never take back what I did. But I need you to believe me when I say that he wasn't the person you think he was. I shook my head, laughing bitterly. Oh, I know exactly who he is. He is a selfish, manipulative bastard who has always wanted what I had. But you let him take it. She covered her mouth, more tears spilling down her cheeks. I should have felt something watching her break apart like this, but I was numb, completely numb. She dropped to the edge of the bed, wiping at her face with the sleeve of her sweater. Do you hate me? She whispered. I exhaled sharply, staring at the ceiling. I do not know. And that was the truth. I had spent the last 24 hours cycling through rage, disgust, heartbreak, and confusion. But hatred? I wasn't sure if I had it in me. Not yet. But I knew I didn't love her anymore. Not in the way that mattered. She nodded like she already knew the answer. What happens now? I stood up, running a hand through my hair. I was exhausted, drained in a way I had never been before. I don't know, I admitted. But I need space. I need time. She inhaled a shaky breath. Understand. I grabbed my keys off the nightstand, shoving them into my pocket. I'm leaving for a few days, I said. You can stay here. Do whatever you need to do. But I need to get out of this house. Where are you going? She asked, her voice small. I looked at her, and for the first time in our entire relationship, I didn't feel anything. I don't know, I said simply. And then I walked out the door. The night air hit me hard as I stepped outside, my breath visible in the cold. My truck was parked in the driveway, and I climbed inside, gripping the steering wheel like it was the only thing keeping me grounded. I didn't have a plan. I didn't have a destination. I just needed to be somewhere that wasn't here. The engine rumbled to life, and I pulled out onto the empty road, watching as my house, our house, faded into the distance. I had no idea what came next. No idea if this was the beginning of a long road to forgiveness or just the slow unraveling of everything we had left. But what I did know was this. I wasn't coming home anytime soon. Maybe not ever.